5. The lines are locked. 4. Match day is near. 3. The picks are clear. 2. The picks are in. 1. Let the show begin. Game on. It's that time again. Game on. Kicks and picks is back again. Game on. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Game on. The guys are here and ready to go. Game on. Game on. Game on. Game on. The guys are here and ready to go.
Welcome back to the Kicks and Picks podcast. We got the whole crew here. Nick and Scotty are here with me, and so is our special guest, Zach Lowy. Zach, you're all over the place, so welcome to the show. We're glad to have you back. I think we had you way back the World Cup preview a while back.
Yeah.
But we've got you back for your Spain expertise tonight with El Clasicos. How you doing tonight, Zach?
Doing really well. Really glad to be back, and excited to be discussing some picks.
All right, so, I mean, Champions League just wrapped up a couple hours ago. If you guys want to have any quick reactions, 2-3 minutes. I know you guys like to do that before we start. And then we can get into El Clasico.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Nick. The thing that kind of stood out to me this week was that there was just, I think the goal differential is in a lot of teams' minds, because there were a lot of teams putting up 5-6 goals, just really not taking the foot off the gas pedal, even when they had that, 2 or 3 goal advantage. So I think that's like a nice little twist that we have in some of these early stage games where, maybe in the old group stage, if they're beating up on the team that's in, 4th place in their group, they may just kind of like start taking off some of the better players and resting guys for the weekend. But here they really kind of kept it going. So I thought that made it a little interesting. Not a lot of upsets, not a lot of unexpected results. I know there's some draws out there like Atalanta we were kind of making note of, but other than that, I think the teams that were expected to win by and large did. But I don't know. That's really what my takes were for the last 2 days.
Yeah, if I have my math right, and I really want Zach's opinion on this because I'm sick of hearing myself say it. I love this new format. 13 of the 18 games went over 2.5 goals. So, like, I've been saying it for a year and a half now. This new format is great for the casual bettor. It's great just for action. And I think this match week certainly delivered. A couple unexpected draws, like you said. I think that's really the only thing I could point out. Atalanta, tough result for them. Our boys, Kairat, really, really tough result at home, being up a man for 85 minutes or something like that. And, we got Paphos to finish last. So that was a little bit of a dent into that one. So was hoping for 3 points. But other than that, I think business as usual across the board.
Yeah, I guess Napoli losing to PSV, that's really the only somewhat upset, would you say?
PSV are good. I don't know. PSV at home are good. I mean,
Yeah, and Napoli, their form has been lagging a bit lately, right? So, and we've talked about it before. Conte sometimes in Europe will not completely punt it, but focus on the league more. So it'd be interesting to see how they bounce back against Inter this weekend. We'll talk about that one a little bit later. My big takeaway, and I'm not usually home when these matches are on live, and I happened to be home yesterday and had the Golasso show on for the second half, and the goals just were flying in, right? You got, what did they play, 9 matches at a time now, or there were 7 because there's a couple early matches, and the goals just kept coming, it was like one after another.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think teams are aware that goal differential could matter here, and when they have the chance to really lay it on and get a big jump, they're taking it.
Yeah, Zach, what are your thoughts on the new format over these last year and a half now?
I think I like it, honestly. I think that it really makes for a lot more upsets, just because teams, they need to restructure their priorities. And I think we've seen it this week, especially with Real Madrid, prioritizing the upcoming match against Barcelona over this game against Juventus. Out of all the high-scoring games that there were in this historically high-scoring match day, I believe 71 goals That was really the only one that kind of didn't take off. Just one goal in it. So I think that we're seeing a lot more teams, not putting all their eggs into one basket, right? Maybe they'll put 3 into one basket and 5 into another, right? We're seeing them having to balance priorities and, of course, trying to focus on rotating their players, right? I think that we've seen PSG do that in the earlier weeks. Luis Enrique kind of mixing it up with his team, keeping his players fresh. I think that as a result of the league phase, as a result of having to play 8 games instead of 4, the fact is there is naturally a lot more leeway, right? We saw the first ever version of the league phase. Paris Saint-Germain looked dead and buried, right? I believe 2 or 3 straight defeats as well as the draw. They had an absolutely atrocious start and yet somehow got it together really late in their league campaign and managed to get into the knockout round. And then, of course, having so much diversity, having the chance for all these teams from countries like Azerbaijan, Portugal, Scotland, to give them the chance of, going far. I think that's really made it a lot more conducive to upsets.
Yeah. No, I agree with that a lot too. I think I like your point about what PSG did last year, because that's kind of been the vein or the approach that I've been looking at for Liverpool, where it's like last year they finished top of the table, then they still got matched up against PSG in their first round matchup. So it's really not about going out and winning 8 games in the league or in the league stage. It's really about trying to manage those minutes and trying to get your team strongest when it gets to February or so, and going in for that home stretch.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I just think overall that's kind of a pattern we're noticing, not just in soccer, but throughout sports, right? Kind of load management. I think we've seen that a little bit in this Inter Miami season, which has been, for my money, a really disappointing season up until now. I think that a lot of the players, they know, well, we just had the greatest regular season in MLS history, only to get knocked out by an average Atlanta side in the first round. Let's try to conserve our energy. Let's not try to put all of our momentum into just getting the best regular season, right? So it'll be very interesting to see how these playoffs shape up.
One other thing I want to note: 7 red cards today. So,
yeah,
I mean, some justified, some not, but it just, I don't know, where are you getting some of these referees, right? If you're supposed to be sending the top guys from your federation, from your country, I think there's still a little bit to be desired here. Obviously, I didn't see every single one, but that stood out. I mean, that's just a massive, massive number.
Yeah, I didn't see everyone as well, but I would say for me, Ilya Zabarny, probably the most embarrassing. He had a really great opportunity this week, starting in the absence of the captain Marquinhos, and yet really let himself and the team down with not just a red card, but 2 penalties conceded. Really an atrocious match for him to forget.
Yeah, so you were referencing the load management from teams like Real Madrid. So let's jump right into El Clasico. So, we mostly cover Serie A and Premier League here, Zach. So just give us a little rundown of how these 2 teams have fared so far, and then we'll get into the head-to-head matchup that's coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think those odds are a little bit surprising. With that being said, though, if I had to pick a team, I would probably go with Real Madrid. I think that they've been managing to win, but managing to win ugly, shall we say, right? They haven't really been at their best, still kind of getting a lot of their players back to full fitness, trying to sort out these new signings and how they fit in under Alonso. But overall, I have been very impressed with them, not just this season, but in the Club World Cup under Alonso. I think that we're starting to see him kind of implement his DNA, implement his tactics, and allow these young, hungry
I think, Zach, you got muted there, Zach.
Sorry, can you
I
hear me
blame
now?
StreamYard.
There we go.
Yeah. The last thing I heard was young, hungry, and then we lost you.
Yeah. So like I was saying, I think that this Real Madrid team, it was in need of a retooling, right? If you're going to move on from an experienced winning manager like Carlo Ancelotti and, go for a rebuild, right? You need the right coach for it, but you also need the right players for it. And if you can get that combination right, which is so hard to get, I think that's when you're able to work magic. And I think we're seeing that with this Real Madrid team. Still, they're not blowing out teams, right? So I think that if Barcelona are to win this game, I think they're going to want this game to be 4 or 5 goals, right? They're going to want this game to be hitting the over. Real Madrid are going to be wanting them to go to the under. We're seeing them win, 2-1, 1-0, right? We're seeing them kind of gut out results despite not being at their best. And ultimately, I think that if we're looking at individual quality, I might just give Barcelona the edge. But if we're looking at cohesiveness, if we're looking at teamwork, for me, Real Madrid, I give them the upper edge. I just think that Barcelona, there's a mistake in them. I think that their high line can land themselves in some serious danger multiple times per game. I feel like they've got more mistakes in them, especially after losing such a key member of their defense in Inigo Martinez, especially after losing so many players to injury in defense in the past few weeks. For me, I'm going to say Real win, and I'm going to say a fairly low-scoring result. Let's say 2-1.
That's actually really interesting because when you're looking at the history of these matchups, this game has gone over 3 goals in 5 of the last 6 games. It's historically been a shootout type of match. It's been very entertaining for neutrals like myself. But I do see your point where like it seems like if Real are going to win this, it's going to be on the lower scoring side, and so that's kind of where I'm trying to make sense of it, because my natural inclination with El Clasico is take the over 3.5 and enjoy, but it may not be the safest bet this time around.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, I think to Zach's point, sorry, Nick, is that like you look at the match against Juventus, right? Juventus has been a team that has been playing some higher scoring matches in the Champions League this year, right? 1-0 match today. They grinded it out, didn't concede. I think that's a really good point. I mean, the one match that stands out that Real's defense kind of just capitulated was the one in the Madrid derby, the 5-2 loss. But they have been playing fairly low scoring matches for the most part.
So I have a question for you for both of these sides. You talked about that reset for Real, which, I think you're exactly right. We've seen good things through 11, 12, 13 games. We got Mbappe, who leads the league with 10 goals. We got Arda Güler, who's right up there in assists with 4 assists already. Which guy, it doesn't have to be one of those two, I'm just pointing them out. Is it one of those guys, or is it somebody else that you've seen take kind of that biggest step under
with regards
Xavi?
to Real Madrid,
Regards to Real Madrid, just in terms of that kind of reshaping of the team and the mentality and the new coach.
Well, look, I think it goes without saying that the new franchise player of Real Madrid is Kylian Mbappe, and that's really been the case ever since he stepped foot in Madrid. I think that's been something that has been very difficult for Vinicius Jr. to deal with. I think that, combined with missing out on the Ballon d'Or, has really resulted in him suffering a great drop in terms of his level, having to kind of share that spotlight. But it goes without saying that whereas Vinicius and Bellingham, they're still trying to work their way back, right? Even though they had a pretty good contribution today with the goal against Juventus, they're definitely far away from that world-class level that they displayed in that double winning season under Ancelotti. They're still, walking back to the top of the mountain. Mbappe, he's right there. He's right at the top of the mountain. Okay, he's up there with the likes of Erling Haaland, Harry Kane, and I think that's the upper echelon. I would probably even put him in a higher echelon right now than Lamine Yamal. Some people, they might argue he's at the same level. If we're looking at goals, if we're looking at goal contributions, Mbappe is in another tier. However, if we're looking at the ability to turn the game on one's head, to just conjure up magic out of nothing, I think Lamine Yamal is right there, up there with him. He is one of the best players in world football, and for me, he is going to be the most important player for Barcelona to win this game.
All right, you kind of answered it for us, but I want to hear you say it out loud because I feel like Scotty and I get biased on this. Vinicius Jr., underrated, overrated, perfectly rated.
I will say perfectly rated. I think he's definitely overhated. I would argue. I think that he's gotten a lot of a lot of abuse that isn't called for. But with that being said, a lot of his abuse on the pitch, he kind of brings on to himself by acting like a diva sometimes, by being a little bit of ill-disciplined, shall we say. And I think that he does definitely need to work on that aspect. That discipline, being a little more well-mannered and just focused on not trying to piss off opponents, just trying to focus on winning the game. I would like to see more of that. I would like to see definitely more consistency from him. But overall, I don't think that he's that far away from returning to his level and becoming one of the best players in world football again, right? I think that this is a player who can make a difference in so many different attributes, right? Whether that's squaring up a man 1v1 or taking on 3 or 4 opponents and just kind of doing it all on the counterattack. And for me, he has that X factor. He has that unpredictability and that ability to just kind of turn a game on its head. And not only that, but he's done it and delivered in the Champions League time and time again, right? He is one of the most clutch, decisive player when the lights are the brightest. He's somebody who's going to be that X factor. So for me, yes, he definitely needs a lot to get back to his level, right? We need to see more consistency. We need to see more end product and a little more effectiveness in the final third. But with that being said, I certainly think that he has what it takes for, by the time the World Cup rolls around, for him to be one of the best players in world football again.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting parts about this, and we kind of had a discussion about this in our text chat, but I've kind of come to this conclusion that El Clasico is suffering a little bit of a hangover from when we had the Messi and Ronaldo matchups for over a decade. And when you have two players that are legitimate generational talents that are consistently going up against each other, it just brings that extra level of juice to an already historic matchup. And I'm 34. I most of my life there's been either a Ronaldinho, a Zidane, a Cristiano Ronaldo, a Messi. This current iteration of El Clasico, there's still some great names and some great players, but it's not quite at that level of generational talent. I think Mbappe, maybe Bellingham, are probably the biggest names or the biggest potentials, and obviously Yamal. Depending on how he develops, it's still a little early. He has that potential. Pedri, again, still a little bit early, and so it's like we're almost in like the ebb and flow of El Clasico. It feels like we're in a little bit of an ebb, maybe on the upswing, depending on how some of these names really kind of develop and get into their prime in the next few years. But it is an interesting thing because I'm looking at the lineups that Barcelona, for example, have been trotting out for the last few days or for the last few games, and I'm a little biased, but when I see like Marcus Rashford in this, it's not like the most exciting and compelling player to be watching in El Clasico. I want one of those guys that you feel is going to put in one of those incredible individual performances that can put 2 goals in and do it all while dribbling 3 guys and doing some insane shot from outside the box. And Rashford has that potential every other year maybe to put in a match like that, but he doesn't just seem like the kind of guy that is at the level that I've always associated the El Clasico for the last 20 years or so. And I don't know if that's fair or unfair for me to say, but it's just kind of how I've been feeling it out over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'll hit you with a counterpoint before Zach goes.
Hit me.
Barcelona just somehow trots out some 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old that I have never heard of every other game who's on the score sheet.
Yeah.
That's been happening for the past 2 or 3 years. So maybe they're not household names, but they you got kids that are teenagers that can start any given game for Barcelona. That's a different kind of stuff. It's not the star power, but that's a different level of something that these other teams don't
Yeah,
have.
I mean,
And that's
La
what's
Masia
impressive to me.
is always going to be the strength of Barcelona, right? Their academy is legitimately second to none, and I think historically they've always been able to kind of combine that with some of their big names that they go out and sign. But obviously, with their financial issues last few years that have been well documented, and they haven't quite been able to buy as well as they have in the years past, right? They're not bringing in like a Luis Suarez to kind of, or a Neymar to supplement some of their La Masia graduates. So I think that's maybe the difference. They still have this academy that's going to produce absolutely unbelievable players for sure, but they're lacking that like secondary component where they use the transfer market in other leagues and other teams to kind of supplement those players. That would be my view.
Yeah, I think it's the financial thing has a lot to do with it, right? They can't buy those type of players anymore, but the way they produce those talents, like Nick said, is just, and you said it too, second to none, right? 17, 18, 19-year-olds coming on in the Champions League and putting on a show, and I think you have to think about even those great Barca teams though that Messi was on, right? He came through the academy, so did Iniesta and Xavi and these guys. So I think maybe we're in the process of that happening again. For me, I always associate the bigger buys with Real Madrid because they would just buy a guy from each country, right? Pretty much. You got Beckham coming in. You've got Zidane. You've got. I know they tried to buy Totti a few times. They just pluck out guys from each nation. So to me, Barca was always the team that was always more homegrown, and it seems to be that way still.
Yeah, and maybe that's just like a indicative of where the two teams are right now, where they are still kind of relying on a lot more of the homegrown element of it. But I mean, look at who Real Madrid have been buying. They bought Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's not going to be in this because he's been hurt. Outside of Mbappe and Bellingham, they've been kind of supplementing their team with a lot of midfielders and playing those guys like wherever they can fit them, whether it's a wing back or elsewhere. So yeah, I don't know. It makes it. I guess my point is that like this just feels like a slightly watered down version of El Clasico than what I've been used to in years past. It's still going to be an incredible matchup. It still has incredible talent because the floor for these two clubs is still higher than most team ceilings, but it just doesn't quite have the same zip that I'm used to having when I'm going into an El Clasico weekend.
And in terms of the buys, how much of that do you think has to do with the rise of PSG, of City, right? Of these like oil-rich clubs, right? And then these clubs aren't as powerful financially as they once were, especially Barcelona. So I think that contributes to who gets brought in from the outside too here.
Yeah, but we say that at the same time as Real Madrid's best player being bought from PSG
Of course.
for
Yeah.
a large sum of money. So I see your point, Coach, but I think that still speaks to the pulling power of Real Madrid. They'll still be
Of course, yeah. Yeah, the crest still has the pull for sure. Especially, they have that Los Blancos, right? Everyone wants to play there at some point, or Barcelona from most perspectives. So yeah, that's a good point. So Zach likes Madrid here on the money line plus 105, right? Solid number on them at home. Where are you guys leaning here?
I don't want to talk myself out of Zach's opinion because that's why we brought him on here, and this man knows the league inside and out. But Barcelona double chance at minus 125 is just like screaming at me. Like I just feel like they have enough to leave with a draw. I don't know. Somebody's gonna have to talk me out of it, but that was my initial thought. I think Barcelona to score 2 goals. I saw it at even money, minus 125 here on the sheet. I don't know, but it goes against everything that Zach said. So I'm torn right now. I'm going to let you guys talk me into or out of a bet.
I think
go ahead, Scott.
I was gonna say I can be quick. I think coming into this, my gut was telling me Real Madrid just based on like who's going to be available and who the projected lineups are. I think they're going to have more firepower off the bench as well if they need to kind of change the game. So I kind of lean towards that being like, hey, if it's level in the 75th minute, who's going to have the guy on the bench that can kind of make the difference? And I feel like that edge would go to Real right now. But like I said, my instinct tells me that this is an over 2.5, over 3.5 probably game. And I see Zach's point where if you look at the results that Barcelona have been getting, they've been getting wins with 3, 4, 5 goals scored. Real Madrid has been a little bit different. So that's the only thing I'm questioning. But I think I got to stick with my gut and still go Real Madrid money line here. But I am a little nervous because I also want to take the over 3.5.
Yeah, my original lean was seeing Barca draw no bet plus 135 next point, double chance minus 125. They've had the recent success head to head. Goals seem to be the way things go in these matches. That's where I was leaning. So yes, Zach has me kind of rethinking what I was looking at here. He follows these teams closer than I do. I'm just going off of like, what we saw in the Champions League this week and looking at scores week to week and not really watching them as closely. So certainly food for thought for me to maybe not be so gung-ho about going toward Barca with some protection against the draw, or even getting the draw in your favor with the double chance. So yeah, and then the injuries too obviously contribute to that too, like Scott said. But I think the way it plays out in terms of goals is going to have a big say in who wins this match, right? If it's a higher scoring match, I think it does favor Barca. We saw what happened when they got into a shootout, Real Madrid with Atletico, right? And it turned into a 5-2 Atleti win. So you would think on paper Real has the guns to hang with them if it does get into a little bit of a shootout. But we'll see.
Is it too soon to look at player props?
Never.
Mbappe's minus 125.
Well, no, I'm gonna the score, give an assist. Yamal sitting there at plus 105.
That was yeah.
That feels like you have to play that.
Is he healthy? He's fit.
Yeah,
played yesterday. Yeah,
he played. Yeah, he should be.
Yeah, that's
Man,
certainly
Zach,
one.
Can you give us a rundown here, man? I'm looking at the injury list. Like everybody is out for Barca essentially.
Essentially, yeah. I mean,
Oh.
both teams have suffered their fair share of injuries, but I would definitely say Barca have been a lot more shortened, right? They're just having to do next man up, right? And the thing that's really good about a heightened approach with regards to your youth, in terms of using a lot more youth players is you kind of have an infinite oasis of depth, right? You have a lot more players available than you think. In the past, Barcelona, they would have spent 20 million euros on someone like Lucas Digne or Adriano to be their backup left back. Instead, they pull a guy like Gerardo Martin from the academy. He's probably never going to be their first choice guy there, but he can certainly do a job, right? He can get the job done in the Champions League in a high stakes La Liga match. For me, that's what's been one of the biggest reasons behind not just Barca's resurgence over the past year and a half, but PSG's as well. Just allowing these young kids to take over, to kind of take the moment by the scruff of the neck. But the one thing I would say as well with regards to these bets is, I think that sometimes the double chance can be a little too tempting, and because you have two options of getting away with the win. But frankly, I think that there are certain matches that are just bound to not end in a stalemate, and I think this is one of them. I just feel like there's just too much talent in the final third between these two sides, and there are too many holes at the back. There's just so much helium waiting to escape the balloon, and I think that we're going to see something like that. We're going to see one of these teams walk away with the 3 points. I highly doubt that we're going to see a draw. So, yeah, for me, you got to pick one or the other.
No, I think that's fair. I agree with that. I mean, these guys will tell you, I typically will say in a derby match like this, you could throw out history, you could throw out form, but then you also have two teams that are at the top of the standings, right? So anything could happen. It's one bounce of the ball. So what do? Do you give the edge to the home team, or if you're a degenerate, do you take the underdog and hope to get that big number and get a little bit of a score? I mean, I don't see an awful lot between these teams, so I'm always kind of going to take a shot with the underdog in that case, but maybe I should just go with the plus 215.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the number, Nick,
when do you get that number on Barcelona?
Yeah. Very, very rarely,
that's
right?
like my
basically this is pretty much the only time, right? Yeah. So pick a side. You're getting plus money on either one.
So Zach, let me ask you a question. If the venue was reversed, if this game was in Barca, would you have these odds flipped, or do you think they'd be pretty similar?
I think they would be pretty similar. I think Real Madrid, I would probably place them around like 140. Yeah, I think they would be definitely the favorites, if not slightly slimmer.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, that says a lot. All right. So that should be a real good one. Also on Saturday, moving over to Italy, the other big one in the Big Five leagues in Europe this week is Napoli hosting Inter. Napoli coming off a real shellacking at the hands of PSV yesterday in Eindhoven. Inter coming off a big win, 4-0 against, remind me which Belgian side was it? It wasn't Bruges, it was the other one. They beat yesterday.
I don't know.
Anyway, they're coming off the big win yesterday in the Champions League. Napoli plus 165 on the money line and Inter plus 155. So the books are looking at this as a pretty tight affair. Draws at plus 210, geared toward the under at minus 135. But both teams to score is also minus 135. So the books are basically leaning 1-1 draw here when you see things like that. Napoli, though, not in the greatest vein of form, Nick. Like, what do you make of this one? They're coming off the loss against Torino on the weekend, so I no longer can be made fun of for my club being the only one that loses to Torino in the league. Sorry, Scott.
We had one good episode.
I know, it was fun while it lasted.
The futures have also shifted too. I noticed over after the weekend, Inter's now, I believe, the betting favorite in Italy ahead of Napoli. So, what do you make of this for Napoli? How big of a match is this for Napoli? Really, I think this is bigger for them probably.
This is a potentially season-defining match for them. I think if they lose this game, I don't know that they could right the ship. And I think that I am ready to fully agree with Scott. I've always been on the fence, but it's time to maybe say Antonio Conte is the most overrated manager in the history of managers. I mean, I've long said that when people touted his great accomplishment with Italy of, like, I don't know, beating Spain in one game or something, and they're like, oh, he had such a bad squad. Like, yo, he picked the fucking squad. So yeah, he had a bad squad that he picked. Don't give me that argument. This dude consistently does nothing in the Champions League. And now that he has a couple fronts to fight on, spent a ton of money, right? They spent some money in the offseason, and you've lost 2 of your last 3 games in the league. You've lost your last 2 games overall. You shipped 6 goals to PSV today. I don't really have anything good to say about this team right now. I don't think they're doing anything particularly well. That 1-0 loss to Torino, I mean, that's inexcusable in a weekend where a lot of other teams slipped up and you really kind of had a chance, right? Roma had their first loss. Juve hasn't won a game in 7 games. Everybody, Atalanta had a terrible week. So outside of Milan, nobody really did anything spectacular. I don't know. And on the flip side, Inter looks great, right? They slipped up early in the year. Now they've won 4 straight. They're scoring goals. They're getting contributions from their 2 young strikers that they brought in who are getting decent minutes in Boni and Esposito. So
yeah.
I don't know. Like we had Johnny on last week, and I was ridiculing Inter about their old fucking midfield of statues and guys that can't run, but it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah.
And they're doing this all with a new coach who has almost 0 head coaching experience. So I am willing to say maybe I was wrong about Inter. I don't know if they can win the league. I still think it's early to make that call. But I think if Napoli lose this game and they lose 3 out of 4, I don't know how you recover from that, especially when the goals aren't exactly flowing in.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, I agree with you to a point, right? Like these 2 teams are on complete opposite trajectories right now. Like Inter feel like they're kind of turning around. They're scoring goals. They're playing the defense that we're used to seeing them. Napoli
and they have the same record, right? I'm sorry. I'm talking about it like it's dire. They're the same exact record.
Equal on the table. It's just different trajectories. That's all that is, like last month or so. But, can Napoli turn it around? That's where the Conte factor comes in, right? Because Conte isn't the type of guy to, like, when something is going bad, to, like, circle the wagons, get the troops kind of rallied together and get the courses, or get the season back on track. Like, that's not his specialty. Like, he tends to, like, start complaining and deflecting and trying to make sure that he's not the one that's getting the blame for the poor form. And so that's kind of where I think it's better having a manager that can kind of, I don't want to say be mature about it, but like, say the boring things in the press conferences, kind of talk to players and get them to kind of like get their heads together and not necessarily be in this doom and gloom cycle. But that's not really Conte's forte. And so, this is one of those things where I think we talked about it 2 years ago. I always say that Napoli is always closer to having the wheels fall off than they are to like really just taking the league by the scruff of the neck and just taking control of the title chase. So yeah, I mean, in this matchup particular, Inter draw no bet -115. I think it's actually moving now.
Plus
17
150 for Inter to score 2 goals. Napoli's giving up goals to everybody.
Yeah, I think you have to be backing Inter in some capacity here. I know they're the away team, but I don't think it matters in this. Like this is a match that Inter should be winning left, right.
I think that's the only thing holding Napoli's odds together is that it's tough to go to Naples and get a win.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Napoli hasn't kept a clean sheet 8 straight matches, which is crazy to me because when you think of Conte managed sides, like I think it was Conte Juve sides, like they did not concede, right? That was their strength. This has been the opposite. They're over in 5 out of 6. That's not what you expect from his managing style. Yeah, I mean, you have to like Inter here. I think the draw no bet is a good call at -115 just because you get the protection on the road. It can be tough to go to Naples, but I think right now it's Inter's match to lose. I mean, they're coming off another solid win on the midweek. Like Nick said, Boni had the only goal in the match against Roma, right? They went to the Olimpico, which is not an easy place to win either. And they got the job done. Did they get outplayed at times? Yes, but they held on to win. They didn't concede, which I think is impressive on their part. The last 3 head-to-heads between these sides have been 1-1 draws. But I mean, maybe that's why the books are leaning the way they are. But the way Inter can score this year, outside of that Roma match recently, they've been multi-goal scores every match. I look back all the way to except for match week 1 when they lost to Udinese, shockingly, right? Or match week 2 maybe it was. Actually, that was match week 2 because they beat Torino the first week. They hammered them. But, they're multi-goal scores almost every match. So I don't think taking a shot at team total at +140, +150 is a bad look either.
Yeah.
For sure.
Zach, any thoughts?
Yeah. Listen, I think there are certain matches where I think it's smarter to back the goals, back the over or under than the result, and I think that this is one of them. I think for me, this has shootout written all over it, right? We're looking at a Napoli side that have been leaking goals, that really have kind of forgotten how to keep a clean sheet. Since that Scudetto win, we're seeing just some really casual errors at the back. We're seeing a team that is proving to be really lackadaisical, getting back in the counter. So for me, I'm really worried about that aspect of Napoli. With that being said, though, I do think that Antonio Conte, he's one of the most accomplished coaches of his generation, and one of the biggest reasons for that is he is a great motivator. He is somebody who is really capable of taking a team that's going through a rut, that's come off the back of some really difficult results, and getting them charged up in training in the pre-match, conference with each other, just getting them to believe in one another. So I don't think that Napoli are incapable of doing something similar to that and just really shocking them. Overall, I actually think that a draw would be a good result. If I had to pick between win, draw, or loss, I would go with the draw because I simply think that Conte, he's going to be fired up. This is a decisive match for their Scudetto ambitions. And of course, it's a decisive match for him, right? He wants to beat his former employers. He wants to show them what they're missing. I think that he's going to get them fired up enough to go out and defend their fans and defend their title ambitions. I think we're going to see a high-scoring stalemate. I would say 2-2, 3-3, around that region, because Inter, as has already been said before, they are scoring goals for fun right now, right? They are just finding ways to score, whether it's their wingbacks, their strikers, their midfielders. They're finding a way to get the job done. So I really think that the smart money here is both teams to score and the over.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Inter 2+ goals in 7 out of 8. I just don't see how you don't take a shot with that number. And like like Zach said, the result doesn't matter at that point. 2-2, 3-3.
Yeah.
Get 2 goals, you win your bet.
Yeah. All right. Let's do a rundown of the league here. So starting on Friday, we've got Milan hosting Pisa. Very chalky lines, obviously. Milan at home. I don't know if there's anything you like there.
Nope, good for them.
All right. Yeah.
Continue to stack points, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parma hosting Como. This is one that jumped out at me when I was looking at the lines. Como minus 105 on the road, coming off a big win against Juventus. Nico Pass is just a menace right now for teams. Parma not very good. I don't see how you don't back Como here minus 105.
Yeah, it's an easy one.
I think so. Until they don't win a game, I think you have to. They're what, 6 unbeaten?
Yeah.
5 or 6?
Yeah, they're playing very well. Udinese hosting Lecce on Saturday at the same time, early Saturday game.
Ugh.
Nothing for me in that game.
Yeah, that has. I mean, honestly, if you're gun to my head, I'm taking a draw in that game because I
Yeah.
don't like either of those teams, and it just seems like this is a there was like 8-0 or how many 0-0 draws were there last weekend?
There was like 4 0-0 draws last weekend or something.
That's
in the
this
league,
game is ripe for a 0-0.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one that you feel strongly about 0-0, it's not worth. It's not a bad look to take a shot and say, because we had 4 last week.
Yeah.
The unders hit, I think, at 8 matches out of
that's
10
what I was
last
thinking.
weekend. It was
The
crazy.
Yeah,
We had
unbelievable.
0-0,
Champions League couldn't
0-0.
have come any quicker.
Yeah, 1-0, 1-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2 more 0-0s, a 2-1, and a 1-1. So it was actually 9 out of 10 went under.
Yeah, that's
2.5 goals. So
crazy.
just some reference points going to this one. And then it's the Napoli Inter match we talked about. Cremonese hosting Atalanta. Atalanta minus 165.
Yep.
They're in a little bit of a rough spot too.
They haven't won in
Cremonese,
a month.
but yeah. I mean, they were being touted. I saw a tweet where they were being touted as like one of the 2 unbeaten sides in Europe's top 5 leagues, but it's 2 wins, 5 draws, right?
Yeah,
doesn't move
and
the
guess
needle
what?
for me.
They just got held scoreless at Lazio and at Slavia Prague.
Yeah,
or at home to Slavia. Like teams score 4 and 5 goals on them. Like and you couldn't muster 1 in those last 2 games. I don't know.
Does this become an under match?
Could be.
Could be.
Even money for under 2.5. I don't hate it.
All right. Moving on to Sunday, the early match, which with daylight savings happening in Europe is 7:30 this week, so everything's shifted an hour from Serie A, and I'm assuming the Premier League too.
Yep.
Torino plus 120 hosting Genoa plus 240. Torino coming off a big win, but
Can they do 2 in a row?
Can they do 2 in a row? Can you trust them?
I don't think so, but at the same time, it's am I backing Genoa to get a result today?
Winless Genoa? No. You have to fade Genoa. You have to.
No.
I mean, I'm not saying you necessarily need to bet on this game, but if you are, you better be taking Torino at home.
Yeah. If you want some action with your Sunday morning coffee. The next match is Sassuolo hosting Roma. Sassuolo plus 300, Roma minus 120.
Roma
what do you make of
line
this one?
all day.
I think you got to take Roma money line on this one.
Coach, what are you hearing? What are the streets saying about Roma tomorrow at home?
I mean, like I said on my Roma podcast, it has to be a win against Pilsman. It has to be.
But I mean, are they going to start any players? Or are they starting the reserves? What's Gasperini doing?
It would have helped if I wrote my probable formations before I came on and not after. But let's see. Let's take a quick.
Sassuolo's kind of hot, dude. They haven't lost in 3 games.
Well, then, all right. How about Roma team total 1.5?
Have they done that yet?
They've done it, but not enough for me to love it. So tomorrow, looking at Indica getting a day off, possibly Cristante getting a day off. Maybe Sule from the projected formations here on Sky Sports. So it's going to rotate a little bit. But I think you get one of Dybala or Sule starting this match. You get maybe Ferguson if Dubbick starts tomorrow.
I would almost take under 2.5 in this game.
I mean, I lean Roma money line, but I also want to see how they play tomorrow too.
Yeah, I mean, after last weekend, you can talk me into any under this weekend.
Yeah. Zach, do you have any thoughts on hating Roma? You're more than welcome to voice those right now.
on hating Roma. I love Roma. My cousin is
Uh-oh.
actually a diehard Roma supporter. So no, I have no bias whatsoever. I would say though that I think if you're gonna bet on those games, the Roma one is tempting, but I would be a little wary because Sassuolo, they're getting into a bit of form after their
Yeah.
return to Serie A, and we've seen throughout the past decade their propensity to pull off these regular upsets against Italy's strongest teams. Roma going to be coming off a very jam-packed week with multiple games. I would be, cautious as to them picking up the 3 points. I think actually the smarter bet would be something with regards to Como, Parma. Como are just in a fantastic run of form at the moment under Cesc Fabregas. They've got a really well-worked team that looks even stronger than last season. For me, they're going to be a really tough team to beat, and I think that they have what it takes to come away with the 3 points. And just spoiler alert, but a few in this week, a article of mine on Nico Paz will be coming out. So I'm a bit biased, but for
Let's
me,
go.
I think Nico is the best player in Serie A right now. What he's doing with Como, it's just incredible, and he's just, for me, if not the best, the most exciting player to watch in Serie A.
Yeah, I
no,
mean, we talked about Real Madrid and the talents. Well, he's going to be back there next year. There's no doubt about that with the way he's playing. I think Como is probably my favorite bet I've seen so far in terms of money line up through this match. So
Don't you wait. Don't
no,
you
I know
wait.
there's no one coming up. I know. I see it. I see it in the list here. Verona hosting Cagliari at 10 a.m. on Sunday. This is a potential under, maybe low scoring draw after what we saw from these two sides last weekend. The one that jumps out at me is right here. I think this one you're probably referring to, Nick. This is the 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday Eastern. Fiorentina hosting Bologna. Both teams plus 160 on the money line. How do we not back Bologna in this match?
I think you do in the run of form that they're in. I'm waiting for the ball to drop here in Fiorentina. I thought they looked somewhat decent last week, but I don't know. They have to score at some point, right? They have to get a win. And this just seems like a game that Bologna drops. Like, no reason for them to do it, but like eventually they're going to come out flat. They also play tomorrow.
Both teams play tomorrow, right?
Oh, they do both in the same week. Okay.
Conference League, I believe, is tomorrow too.
Fair enough.
Yep.
All right. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily take them on the money line just because it is on the road, but I think the draw no bet. Like, how do you not go Bologna draw no bet? Unless they have a completely awful match tomorrow on Thursday.
No, that has to be the pick.
Listen, my boys in the chat are with me here. Pioli's last stand.
I don't see how it can't be, right? If they don't get something, if they don't get a win, how does he last 8 match weeks without a win in Serie A?
It can't be against Bologna though. That would just be, that's too much. That's a bridge too far for me.
I'll say what I said the last 3 weeks. Also, I'm also very biased as he's my favorite player. If you're giving me Orsolini, who is the league leader in goals at plus 300 against a winless team, I'm going to take that.
He didn't start last weekend, though.
Still came off the bench and scored.
That's true.
And then wrapping up the match week are your boys, Nick. The late Sunday match, Lazio hosting Juventus. Two sides that could desperately use a win.
Under.
And this could be, could this be Tudor's last stand?
So it has come to my attention that Juventus is winless in 7 games. I was unaware of that. Juve money line plus 130 has game of the year potential.
Stop. No.
All the doctor ordered is coming up against Lazio. I think it absolutely has to be considered for the game of the year. Lazio are in fucking shambles. They can't score. I don't have one good thing to say about them. I guess they've only given up 7 goals. That's kind of good. They only have 1 win in their last 5 games. Like, this is perfect recipe for Juve to get back on track. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, even the under 2.25 is minus 130. This is gonna be whoever scores wins. If you get a goal, you're gonna get 3 points in this one. That's what
I think so.
All right, Zach, any closing thoughts on any of these Serie A matches before we move over to the Premier League?
Not really.
All right, let's swing over to England.
Man,
Let me pull up
Zach
the
is going to
lines
be
here.
able to tell people, his tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, that he came on Kicks and Picks when the game of the year Juventus money line hit.
All right, so heading over to England, let's finish it up here. We've got Leeds hosting West Ham on Friday.
I think you got to
Leeds
take
minus 120.
Yeah, you got to take Leeds in this one. I mean, West Ham, aside from a 3-0 win against Forest early in the year, they would be at the bottom of this table. They're definitively, I think, the worst team in the Premier League right now. And yeah, I know Nuno has come on board and maybe he can turn things around, but how do you not take Leeds at home in this with the way that West Ham defend and the way that they really have not played well in attack?
All right, you heard it from
Completely
Scotty. Moving to Saturday, Chelsea
Terrible
hosting,
game is the right way to say it.
Chelsea hosting Sunderland, Newcastle hosting Fulham in the 10 a.m. window.
These are hard to find anything. I mean, Chelsea should roll. I know they'll be a little tired, but Sunderland have kind of come back to earth a little bit. Is there a team total in there? Maybe.
I was going to say, if you believe like Fulham could score in the other game, the over could be in play, but I don't know.
Yeah,
all right.
I think these are you got to leave them.
United hosting Brighton. United plus 105 at home. Brighton plus 235.
Right. Here's my bet of the season. I think you got to take Brighton, draw no bet in this one. I think the odds are giving United a lot of credit for beating Liverpool, but I just don't think that was a game where United really beat Liverpool as much as Liverpool once again beat themselves. Brighton have actually been pretty good, unbeaten in their last 4. They've beaten City this year. I think they drew Tottenham, beat Chelsea, I believe. So they're no strangers to getting big wins, especially on the road. I think they beat Chelsea on the road a few weeks ago. So I'm happy to take Brighton plus 145, draw no bet, because let's not forget who this Manchester United team is and how they've really looked under Amorim. I'm not ready to quite claim this a turnaround point for Manchester United in their woeful last few seasons.
They've still conceded more goals than they've scored.
Yeah, it's again, I think this is just an overreaction to them getting a win over Liverpool last weekend, which, again, I think it was more a condemnation of Liverpool's season than it was a crowning of the return of Manchester United.
I think it's definitely a letdown spot for them. Zach, if you want to say anything bad about Manchester United, the floor is yours.
No, I think United, they have a much better chance of getting 3 points than a lot of those teams that are going to be playing this weekend. But overall, I think, we've seen some signs of life the past few weeks. Biggest question, though, is are they going to be able to deliver across 90 minutes without these characteristic errors? I think out of those games, it's funny enough, but I would actually say Leeds are the safest pick. I just think West Ham have been all over the place. There's really no identity, no cohesiveness. It just seems like they're missing so many figures. Whereas Leeds, I know that they haven't really been, stringing together results this season, but I do think that they've been keeping it competitive. We're seeing them start to adapt to life in the top flight. So I actually think they know that they're not going to get many easier opportunities to grab 3 points. They've got to take advantage. I expect them to do so against West Ham.
Okay. Could be a solid way to kick off the weekend with a Friday wager there. I'll run through the rest. You guys just tell me what you like after I read them off. So we've got Brentford hosting Liverpool, Arsenal hosting Palace.
I love the under in that. It's under 2.5 is plus 100. Arsenal only allowed 3 goals all season. Palace back line with Marquez is at sound. So I'm happy to take the under 2.5 on that one at plus money.
We've also got Villa hosting City, Bournemouth hosting Forest, Wolves hosting Burnley, and Everton hosting Spurs.
I like City money line.
I really want to take City money line, but like I said, Aston Villa have been playing really well in the last few weeks, and at home with City really in the league relying on Erling Haaland to score all of their goals. A draw no bet at plus 180. You could probably even get what's the double chance? Aston
Even
Villa,
money.
yeah, even money double chance. I don't mind that. I think this is a good opportunity for Aston Villa to really kind of make their stake that they're legit, and that City maybe need to find someone other than Haaland to score goals reliably.
Do they though?
I think.
I mean, they do. I agree with
Yeah,
you, but I mean,
okay.
he has not stopped.
Yeah, if he gets hurt, man, it all falls apart.
Zach, any thoughts on these other Premier League matches?
No, not really.
Do we think Everton can get a result against Tottenham?
But yes, based on the odds, yes. Based on everything I know about football, no.
I wish the draw no bet number was a little better. That's all I can say. I don't like Spurs. I feel like their little slump right now has been a long time coming. That's just my opinion. But yeah. I'm not convinced. I like what they've done. I think they're going to be much better than they were last year, but they were 17th last year. I don't think they're about Spurs is that right now.
They just don't give up any goals. They really have figured out their defense. Vicario's playing well. And I said it last week. I'll say it again. I just, in my mind, the last time I watched Spurs was that game against City when they bossed them off the field. And like, that's my lasting memory of Spurs. So I just, in my mind, I think they're probably better than they actually are.
Yeah.
Fair. That's a me problem. That's not an anybody else problem. But Everton are the favorites. Let that tell you what it needs to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly interesting to see Everton as the favorites. I know they're at home, but pretty big number on Spurs. Yeah. Wayne got a result at Monaco today.
What did they?
Wasn't it 0-0 and 0-0?
Oh, we're calling that a result.
You're
now?
calling getting that a result. That's my point.
The result
is
when you get a point, it's a result, right?
Did they even have a shot on goal?
I don't know.
No, yeah, that's I would not.
I just know they did not lose. So yeah. All right. Well, yeah.
That's it.
Any closing thoughts?
Zach, anything else we should be on the lookout for this weekend other than El Clasico?
I would say MLS Cup playoffs. You know, there are a lot of really enticing matchups starting tonight, but yeah, I would definitely say check out the MLS Cup playoffs.
Really could have used a goal in that first half, if we're being honest.
For sure, yeah. Definitely expect more goals than we've seen in the first 45.
Yeah, the MLS tends to be an overs league. I don't know if the playoffs will play out any different, but Nick and I had a lot of fun this season, especially with the overs, team totals, things like that. Yeah. Zach, we appreciate you coming on, returning to the show. Tell everybody where they can find your work. You already hinted at a Nico Paz article. Just give us a little more. I know you write for a couple different places. So,
yeah, I write for a few different websites like FOTMOB, RG. But yeah, you can find me at Zach Lowy, ZACHLOWY on Twitter, as well as on LinkedIn and various other social media outlets. But yeah, always a pleasure coming back on and hope to be doing it again soon.
Yeah, so thanks again for joining. Again, you can find us on Instagram, on YouTube, on
TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah, we're all over the place now. We're trying to expand our social media footprint. So give us a follow in those places if you're there, and we'll catch you guys next week.